I'm so passionate about shared ministry, and I really am excited to have this opportunity to talk to you about the ways that shared ministry can increase the experience of richness, both for the minister and for the congregation, and for the collaboration, the creation that they are together. My experience in the congregation that I served, working with worship associates, was absolutely confirming for me about the power of shared ministry. In working with worship associates, the approach that I have taken is not to simply recruit leaders to give readings, but really to engage in theological reflection, spiritual discernment with the folks who I have recruited to leadership. And so I provide them with intensive training so that they can be prepared to engage in that process. Train them about the responsibility that comes with leading worship for a congregation, and then trust them to really bring themselves into that process. And I have found that the congregation has been rewarded again and again and again by the richness that those folks bring to the worship experience. They're not just delivering someone else's words. So often they're finding their own words from deep within themselves, through their own spiritual practices, through theological conversation. They're finding their own words about whatever theme it is that we are exploring, and sharing those with the congregation in a way that really touches hearts and changes lives, not only for the worship associates, but also for the people who have the opportunity to see their peers in congregational life really engaging with the substance of our faith tradition. I can't recommend a Vibrant Worship Associates program enough to any congregation. In addition to that, I think that every area of congregational life is rich for deepening by collaborative shared ministry. When I first arrived at the congregation that I served, they did not have a practice of sharing financial data with ministers. They thought that that was private and should be reserved only to the treasurer and to the bookkeeper or whomever had authority over actually collecting pledges and paying bills. Over the course of our years of working together, we explored best practices around shared ministry and financial leadership of congregations, and they grew to trust me as the minister to engage in that process of financial leadership with them. So the first step toward collaboration actually came from the leaders, trusting the minister to be a part of that process of sharing the ministry. And then once that happened, we found that it actually became a ministry, whereas before it may have been a task that leaders felt like they had to complete in order to be responsible to their friends in the congregation. It grew into a ministry over time, and we found that we worked together as a team to really grow that part of congregational life. And so all of the ideas didn't come from me. That we would go together to workshops, to trainings, we read books together, and through that process we learned, what do other congregations do? What are the best practices out there? And folks would bring suggestions, and I would bring suggestions, and we talk about them together. And over the years we made a number of improvements that have not only strengthened the financial health of the congregation, they've deepened the level of trust in the congregation itself over financial management, which has resulted in an increase in stewardship. And that may not be an obvious process, but when the congregation feels that the congregational leadership is not only being good stewards of their money, but the process of stewarding the money is related to the mission, it increases people's willingness and desire to give to support that mission. And so a very concrete step like moving to a program-based budget, which we did collaboratively as a team, was a part of that process of helping the congregation develop greater trust in the financial ministry of the congregation. And so very concretely, the way we did that was by learning about this process. Someone on our finance committee reached out to some congregations to say, how do you do program-based budgets? And then when we got it all back, we looked together on our team to say, how can we transition our own process? We worked with the board to bring them into the conversation, to help them feel comfortable with making this change. We had folks who volunteered their time and their skills to create graphics because it was such a different way of doing it. We weren't just presenting a line item budget. We were trying to illustrate what is this ministry that we're in to the congregation, so it required a whole different skill set. And then we needed to train our stewards in this process. And that was done by volunteers on the finance committee who were passionate, on the stewardship committee who were passionate about serving the congregation and bringing the stewards on board with that. So from start to finish, the whole process was one of working together as a team in service to something greater than ourselves. And the process has been transformative for everybody involved. In the time that I have served this congregation, the budget has more than doubled. And that, I believe, is directly related to our practice of shared ministry.